Hello guys, welcome back. Now in this tutorial, we are going to cover another flow requirement. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the flow requirement is. John is working as a system administrator at MyTutorialRack. He received a requirement to update all the contact records with the mailing city provided by the user. So there will be a screen to capture the mailing city. You can see the screen looks like this. And then it will update all the contact records with the mailing city. And this flow will be available on the home page. So what are we going to do in this particular requirement is we are going to ask the user to enter a city. Okay, and whatever the city the user is going to enter, all the records, basically all the contact records, there is a field on contact records called mailing city. Now on those records, the mailing city will be updated to whatever the user has provided over here. So let's say we want to update all the cases at once, or we want to update any of the particular field for all the records. So you can do the same thing with the help of code, but we don't want to use code to do that. We want to use the flow. So in order to accomplish this requirement, we will be learning about a new element that is called a loop. So just like in coding, you have these different types of loops, for loop, etc. But in the case of flows also, there is an element that you can add, and it behaves very similar to what we have in code in Apex. So there's a loop element. So you can loop through the records, you can loop through a collection variable, and when you are looping through, it will give you a temporary variable to store the current item of that loop. So how does this loop variable work and how are we going to accomplish this requirement? We are going to see in this tutorial. So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to be creating a simple screen, and on that screen we will be entering a simple text box. Now the next thing is we are going to retrieve all the contract records. So for that purpose we are going to use a get records element, and this is going to retrieve all the contact records, not a particular condition. You can add a condition as well, but we don't have a condition. We are trying to retrieve all the contact records. Now, once all these contact records are retrieved, what we're going to do, we are going to loop through all of these contact records. Then for each record that is available, for each record, we will be updating the city to whatever the city the user has entered in this text box. And then we will add this updated value in a collection variable. Okay, so the whole record with the updated city will be added to this collection variable. So we will also need to create a new variable. Okay, we will be creating a new variable, and this time the variable is for collection of records. Okay, and what this collection of records will be, basically with the updated values of the city, each record will be added to the collection. And once the collection has been updated, then we are going to do a final DML update using our update record element. So we have an update records element on the flow. So we will use this update records and we will update the entire collection of those records with the updated city. So let's go ahead and try to do this with the help of a flow. So I've given you a quick overview here. So the first thing is we are going to add a screen element. Then the next thing is we are going to add a get records element which will retrieve all the records. From there we are going to add a loop element, and then the loop is going to iterate over, and we are going to have an assignment which will update the city on each of those records. Then we are going to add all of these values to a collection variable, and then we are going to run an update on this collection variable. Okay, so this is the complete flow that we will be building in this tutorial. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go back here to my Salesforce. So let's go back to Salesforce, and in the quick find, I'm going to enter flows. So here, I'm going to go ahead and enter flows here. And right now, if you want to do some queries, you can do that to figure out how many total records are available. So I'm going to go to my query editor. You don't have to use code to figure out. You can actually go to the contact records and you can see, but I'll prefer queries. So select ID, mailing city from contact. Okay, so this is the simple query that I've written, and we can figure out there are 20 records we have, and these are the cities that currently these records have. So then what we're going to do here is, the first thing is I'm going to create a new flow. So I'll click on the new flow button. This is going to be a screen flow. Hit the next here, free form. And then the first thing is I'm going to add a screen element. Now what is the screen element is for? To capture which is the new city that you want to update all the contact records with, right? Update city on contact records. Okay, this is just the API name that I've used. Now this is going to have a text field. So I'm going to go ahead and drop a text field here. And this is to capture the city. So I'm going to go ahead and label would be enter city. This is going to be the API name. And this is a required field because until we provide the city value, we can't go ahead and update, right? So we have to make this field required and then done. So this is going to be my first thing that I'm going to connect. Now the next thing I need is I need to retrieve all the contact records that are available in my org. So I'm going to use this get records element and I'm going to drop it on this canvas. The purpose of this element is to retrieve all the contact records. So I'm going to say retrieve all contact. Oops, I'm not sure where did it go, but let's just go back and do it again. So here I'm going to say retrieve all contact records, and it is asking get records of this object. So which object are you interested in? So I'm interested in contact. So I'm going to go ahead and provide contact. So you can put filter condition like, hey, only retrieve contacts where email is present or things of that sort. But I don't want that condition. I basically want all the contact records. So I'm going to choose this particular option, which will retrieve me all contact records in spite of any condition. So this is what I've done. Now you can sort them, you can leave it as it is. Now, how many records do you want to store? I want to store all the records, not only the first record that has been retrieved. I want to store all the records and I'm going to store all the fields. So this is the option I've chosen and hit the done. So now I'm going to connect these two elements. So get records basically is going to retrieve all the records that are available in my contact object. So basically all the 20 records that we have will be retrieved via this get record element. Now where all of these will be stored? So all of these will automatically be stored in this variable that automatically got created when we added this element. So now if you go to your manager here, you will see there is a variable got created automatically, record collection variable. And this is the name of the variable. And we haven't created this. So if you want to take a look at it, this is the variable that is there, but it's created through this element itself. Now the next thing is we need to loop over each of those elements, right? Each of those records. So I'm going to drop this loop element here. So this is my loop element and it is going to iterate over each of those contact records that we retrieved, right? So we are going to go ahead and say iterate over contact record. Okay, so this is what the new loop is. Now, are you iterating over the collection variable? Yes. So which is the collection variable are we iterating over? This one, the one that got created from our previous element. And what is the direction? You are not curious on which direction. Either you can go from first item to the last item, or you can go from last item to the first item. I have no preference. So I'm going to just leave it as it is and then hit the done button. So now I am iterating over this loop element. Now what happens is when you iterate over, you want to change the city on all those records one by one. So we're going to say here, update city on every record. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and update. So here I'm going to say on that variable, right? So what happens is on the current item. So I'm going through the loop. For every iteration, the element will be available in this variable current item. So I'm going to update the mailing city, right? There is a field on there. So now this is one record at a time. Okay, so this is not the whole collection. So this one record, I'm updating the mailing city and I'm updating it to which value? To whatever the value the user has entered in this screen component. So this is what I'm doing. So I am iterating over every record and I'm updating the city on that record. So there is a loop connector here. So for each item in the collection, I can go ahead and update the city on that. Now this is updating it, but you need to add that updated value, right? into a collection of records, and then you're going to do an update. So we will need another assignment here. Okay, we will need another assignment here because we need to add this updated record into a collection. Okay, so here I'm going to say update, add updated records to a collection. Now we have not created this collection variable yet, right? So let's go ahead and create this collection variable. Okay, so I'm going to go over to the set variable values, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new resource, and the resource type is going to be variable, and I'm going to say collection. Okay, we can say variable to store updated contacts. So this is a variable, and what is the data type? So the data type is record, because I'm storing the complete record here, the complete contact record. And it is not only going to have one record, I'm going to store multiple values. Okay, so I'm checking up this checkbox. Now, which object it is related to? Contact. So I'm going to, this is the variable to store all the contact records, one which have been updated with the city value. Now, just for ease purpose, I'm going to check both these checkboxes because I don't want to have an issue in future. So I'm going to make it available for input as well as for output. So now this is done. So this is the variable. Now this is an empty collection of records right now. So I'm going to add. So there is an option called add. So I'm going to add what? The current iteration that I have, right? The current iteration which I updated. So I'm going to add the complete record here, not a particular field or anything. The complete record that has the updated city value. I'm going to add it over here. So I'm going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect this over here, and then I am going to connect back to this loop for the last item, right? So this is what I'm doing. So this is the complete loop. So what this loop is doing, let me explain to you one more time. So what this flow is doing here is, so we have gotten a screen, right? So this is the screen that will have a text box to enter the city, which will, whatever the user, let's say user has entered Mumbai. This is the city value that user has entered in this text field. Now what's happening is, this is the record element which will retrieve all the contact records with all the fields. We are not only retrieving mailing city, we're retrieving pretty much everything. So basically this is what the get records will give us. Contact records, it will give us back the contact record, let's say contact 1, contact 2, contact 3 up till contact 20, because we have 20 records, right? Now let's say this contact had mailing city of Burlington. This one had a mailing city of Delhi. Let's say this one has a mailing city of Dallas, and initially, okay, and then what we have, this one has a mailing city of we can call it Houston. This is the existing records that are available. So this is get records will give us all of these records at a time. Then what we are doing is we are iterating over one item at a time. So now we are updating the city to Mumbai. So we updated this city to Mumbai. And then what we did is we created a collection variable which is going to store contact records. So this one, this whole thing, this whole contact record, we added into this collection. Okay, so now this collection has one item, which is this one, contact 1, and the city is Mumbai. Then again, the loop is going to run. Okay, again, this city, this assignment is going to update the city from Delhi to Mumbai. And now we are adding this whole record over to this collection. So now this collection has a second element, contact number 2, with the city as Mumbai. For the third time, the loop will run. For each item, we are assigning, so we are updating this Dallas to Mumbai again. And then we are adding this record onto this collection. So by the end of this flow, what we'll have is this collection will have 20 contact records. And all those 20 contact records will have the mailing city as Mumbai. This is what we have done so far. So this is the collection. Now this has not been committed to the database. Now what we need is we need a update records element. So I'm going to drop an update records element here. So I'm going to leave it as it is. So this collection has not yet been committed to the database. So what we're going to do is we are going to drop this update records here. And what this update records is going to do, let me delete all of this to avoid the confusion. Update all the contact records with new city. So this is going to update all the contact records. Now we have the collection here, right? We have the collection. So which is that collection? This is the collection variable to store the updated contacts. This is that collection variable name. So this one has all the contact records along with the updated city and everything. So this is what we have. Now hit done. Now this one is going to get executed when? This is going to get executed after the loop has finished running. Okay, so after every element has been done here, that is when this is the, let me just go ahead and move it. So let me go ahead and do this, and let me move this over to the at the end here. Okay, so after the last element, this is the update records will run, means the whole collection will get updated at the end, because you don't want to run update on every record, right? Because then that's when you're going to have governor limits and all that. So you can only run it after all the whole collection has been updated with all the contact records, with the updated mailing list, etc. And then once the loop has finished going through every element, that's when we are going to go ahead and do this update call. Okay, now let me go ahead and hit the save here and update contact records. And this is the flow that I have created. Now let's go ahead and test this flow. Okay, I'm not activating it right now, but let's go ahead and test it. Before we do that, we have the mailing city here. It might, I don't know if it's going to work or not, but let's just test it. So now I'm going to go ahead and hit the run here. And let's say currently, as I've shown you, currently what's going on is the mailing city is, it has some of those places, but let's say we update everything with a city called Mumbai. Okay, this is the city that I'm updating, and hit the next. Now let's see. Okay, there is an exception has occurred. An unhandled fault has occurred in this flow. Now, what is the reason for this? Okay, this is basically where you have to debug. So what will happen is either you can debug the flow, or the other option is you can actually check the email that has been sent. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the email that has been sent to us. I'm going to go ahead and hit the cross here. And I'm going to look at the email address. So because every time there is an error in the flow, you'll also receive an email, and this is the email that came. And if you scroll down towards at the very end, okay, towards at the very end, you're going to see a statement which will tell you what was the cause of this error and on which particular record. This is what it is saying, the error occurred. The flow tried to update these records. This error occurred because of the invalid email address. So somebody has email address which are not valid. So there are a couple of records where the addresses are not valid. So what I'm going to do is, let's go ahead and retrieve. You can either go directly to the record, or I'm just going to query the record, all those emails as well here. So the emails which have an issue, I'm going to just remove them. So this one had an issue. This is not a valid email. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. This one is another one, and everything else looks correct. So I'm going to just go ahead and hit the save. So now those emails, the one which were the faulty emails, have been removed. So let me go ahead and hit the save. Everything now, I think all the emails are valid. Only those two emails were not correct. And we came to know about that because we got an email from the flow, and then it tells you that, okay, this one is an invalid one, and then this one was an invalid one. So there are two emails which were not correct. So now let's go back and run this one more time. So I'm going to go ahead and run it. So currently, if you look at, you do not have any city updated to Mumbai here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and update the Mumbai city and enter the next here. This time the flow did not throw us any exception. So now if I go back and cross this and run the query one more time, you will see that all the records have been updated with this city as Mumbai. So our flow is working fine. Okay, now what the next requirement was, we need to launch this flow from where? We need to launch this flow from the home page. So let's go back and go over to the home page. But before we do that, we have to activate this flow. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and activate the flow. And now if I go back to my home page, so let's go back here and let me go over to the sales, and onto this we have a home page. Now let me replace this flow with the new flow that I've created. Okay, so you can add another one, but just for simplicity and cleaning purpose, I'm not going to add a bunch of flows here. Okay, so I'm going to just delete this one, and I'm going to drop another flow element onto the screen. And this time I'm going to invoke the other flow that I just created, which is the update contact records. So it's going to update the contact records. Hit the save here, and that's it. Now onto the home page, you will see the new update contact record flow, and you can provide the city. So currently we changed the city to Mumbai, right? If you go over to the contact records, right? If you go over to the contact records, the mailing city would be updated to Mumbai for all of them. And if you want to see it, you can see it over here. So we can say select fields to display, and we will add our mailing city as well over here. So let me go ahead and drop the mailing city also. So let me see this one, and I'm going to put it over before this contact alias. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that. Now this one has mailing city, and everything is updated to Mumbai, right? Now through my home page, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and duplicate this tab, and I'm going to go to the home page here, and I'm going to update the whole contact records with the city called Dallas. Okay, that's where I'm going to update it. Let me refresh, and this is going to be the Dallas. And now hit the next here. And now what will happen is if you go back and if you refresh it, the page, you will see all the records have been updated with the mailing city as Dallas. So this is the flow that we have created, and I can walk you through one more time what the flow is doing. So let's go back here, and if I go over to the update, this is the flow, count contact records, update contact records. This is the flow we have. And now on this flow, I have added these elements. Let's go ahead and do a couple more flows with this example itself, like with the similar elements, because a lot of times I have seen people kind of having confusion on this loop element. So let's go ahead and do few more examples to have our concepts crystal clear in the head. Okay, so I'm going to meet you in the next tutorial, and we will cover another flow requirement. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email at info@mytutorialrack.com. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys in the next tutorial. Bye bye, take care.